Welcome everyone. This is egelloC training on a Tuesday, April 22nd. I want to thank you so much for joining us. We're so excited to be talking about a really important subject of how to get ROTC scholarship, and I have a very special guest, as you can see, that is joining us, and we're just so privileged and honored to have him here. Because he is an expert in this field. And thank you so much for everybody joining us here. I know that you have joined me in a number of, so if you are new, welcome. If you are existing, then welcome back. If you could do me a favor in the chat, if you could let me know if you are a parent or a student, and then also if you could let us know what year your student is graduating. That would be really great, just so we kind of have an idea of the kind of mix of people that we have on tonight. So again, okay, we got some parents here, 2030. Ooh, okay, so we got some youngins, which I love. Excellent, they're starting early. Okay, we got some 2026ers. Great, excellent. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get started for a very important subject, and this is something that I wanted to really present to everybody for a long time. And I was just so privileged to have our special guest here. So tonight, what we're going to do is we are going to cover the following here is what is an ROTC scholarship? You know, what is the process to apply for one? How to prepare for that process? Tips on gaining an ROTC scholarship, some of the pathways that lead to it, and then of course we'll leave for some question and answer. But for all intents and purposes, first of all, I want to introduce our special guest. Has been, of course, very close to me for a very long time, and I do want to introduce Michael Vicava. As you can see there, he is a former Marine Corps lieutenant colonel and also an attorney, what they call a JAG, served as an active duty officer for 22 years. So, Mike, thank you so much for your service. We really, truly appreciate that. His mentorship has truly impacted so many students, guiding them through, secure military ROTC and academy scholarships exceeding $4 million. And you can see the laundry list of schools there that he's helped students get into. Amazing schools like USC, Cornell, Northwestern. I mean, those are the top 20 schools, in the nation, as well as the U.S. Air Force Academy. So Michael currently serves as a corporate counsel at Khalidi Biotherapeutics in San Diego. But also, again, thank you for your service, Mike. He was, deployed during Operation Iraqi Freedom in 2003, serving as a JAG for the Marine Infantry Regiment of over 8,500 Marines in Fallujah and Ramadi in Iraq. And of course, he has so many credentials. He holds a master's of laws from Judge Advocate General's Legal Center and a school at the University of Virginia, a Juris Doctor, a JD from Pepperdine University School of Law, and of course his bachelor's from Loyola University in Chicago. So, lots to say there. So Mike, thank you so much for joining us. We're just honored to have you tonight. So thank you so much. All right, so why don't we go ahead and get started, because we have a laundry list of people and they're excited to hear about this. So Mike, can you just first of all provide us, a lot of people say ROTC. What do you mean by ROTC? So can you give us what is ROTC? What is ROTC scholarship?
Yeah, ROTC scholarship stands for Reserve Officer Training Corps. It's been around literally for decades at countless universities. You listed some of the universities. What it does is, if you get an ROTC scholarship, it pays for all tuition and fees. Wow. So I like to use USC. I mean, tuition there is $80,000. The package is $100,000 a year. Wow. So if you get a 4-year scholarship, it's about $400,000. That's paid directly to the university. It does not come to me or to parents, so you're not taxed on it. And again, this is non-tax. So really, if you think of it, a $400,000 scholarship, you really need to make $600,000 to make
Wow.
that pay like 400,000. Let's think of that.
Mhm.
Room and board depends on the university.
Mhm.
Some universities do not pay room and board.
Okay.
Some universities, I'll give you an example, like University of San Diego. Some of my students chose that specifically because University of San Diego pays for all tuition and fees and room and board.
Wow.
University of San Diego is not a cheap school to go to. It's a private, a Catholic school. Some schools, well, like USC, again, I know these schools. I've gotten kids in the schools. They'll chip in, say, 10,000 a year for room and board. You
I
get
see.
also stipend for books. You also get a monthly stipend for expenses, and that's based on year. So, like your senior
Wow.
year, you're getting like $400 a month for quote living expenses. That's a lot
Oh
of
my
money.
gosh.
Every summer you do summer training. You're paid for that summer training, correct?
Okay.
Um, and we've had kids go to Europe. Spain. They sometimes just stay here in San Diego. I mean, they go all over the place. They'll go to Marines go to Quantico, Virginia. I mean, the summer trainings are incredible. What's the payback? Students agree to serve up to 4 years. Again, it's depending on the job. If you're a pilot, payback's a little bit longer. Again, the value is up to 400,000 a year. Again, it depends on the university you go to. If you go, they have scholarships for Stanford, they have scholarships for Harvard, Yale. All
Got it.
fees, all tuition fees. Mhm.
So Mike, how does that work with respect to the military branches? Like, does each military branch have, their own kind of scholarship that they provide? Like, how does
Yes,
that work?
yes. So the Army, Air
Hmm.
Force, and
Okay.
Navy
Okay.
all have their specific ROTC scholarship. The Marine
Hmm.
Corps falls underneath the Navy, and they
Okay.
have their own specific requirements. They're
I see.
pretty much, I would say pretty much the same, but they ask for very similar things. But depending on the scholarship, they may ask for more certain metrics. Let's say that.
Got it. Okay. So, and does every school have a different type of branch, or does like all branches apply to those schools? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so you have to look at the school. The larger schools usually have all branches, and
Mm,
I'm very familiar with. Let's just use USC, UCLA. There's a
okay.
conglomerate that it's
Mhm.
under one command. They have Air Force, Army, and Navy at both
Got it.
universities. So
Mhm.
these bigger schools will have it. Again, it depends on the school, but usually the bigger the school, like a Michigan, Northwestern, they're going to have all three branches. Mhm.
Got it. I see. And again, I know that you'll be talking about some of the things, but with respect to just giving the in people who are on the call here from an RTC perspective, when you enter into the school, I assume you have some obligations. Of course, you have ROTC, there's like there's
Yes.
classes, there's exercises.
Yes.
Like, how does that look like? Yeah.
You take what they call military science classes. If
Hmm.
you're on scholarship, depending on the university, and I just use like say USC because I'm very familiar with it.
Right.
You're treated like an athlete, meaning you get first choice in
Oh,
classes because you need to
wow.
graduate in a certain time period. There's no 6 year program.
Right.
So
Sure.
so they want you to get the classes. So you get head of line privileges in all the classes.
I
So
see.
there's none of this, oh my gosh, I couldn't take the class because I was full. No, you get frontline privileges for classes.
Okay.
After you're done, say when you're done after four
Sure.
years, that's when your service starts. And there's
Got it.
something that they won't tell you, which I know, but really that first year is sort of like a gimme, meaning you could do the whole first year and and if it doesn't work out, it's a wash. You don't owe them
Oh,
anything. Yes.
really?
Now, yes, that's something they kind of won't, they don't always tell you,
Sure.
right? But it's there.
Okay.
It's really after that first year when, whoa, your third year, if you want to drop, that's a different story. Now you got to pay them back. Now you got to
I
pay back.
see.
If you drop out your junior year, different story, right? Now you have to
Okay.
pay back $300,000
I
or
see.
$300,000.
So the
Yeah.
first year, it's almost like a trial period. You can test it
Yes.
out, which of course they don't want you to test it out. They want you to last the whole time, but you could test it out. If it really isn't for you, you finish out your first year. There's no obligation. You don't have to pay them back. You
Yeah,
do
no
your
harm, no
second,
foul.
no harm, no foul. But then second year, if you finish up your second year and then you decide, oh my gosh, you know what, this is really not for me, does that mean then that you have to pay back whatever amount
Now,
they contributed, right? Yeah.
well, let's just say you are now in contract your second
You are
year.
now in
You,
contract. I see.
you
Got
have an obligation. You have an obligation. Yes, you do.
got it.
Mhm.
Okay. And I assume when you graduate now, you're commissioned as at a certain level as an officer
Yes.
within that branch. Is that correct?
Yes. So if you are in the Army, Marine Corps, you or the Air Force, you're commissioned as a second lieutenant. If
Second
you're in the
lieutenant.
Navy, you're commissioned as an ensign, which is the same rank as a second lieutenant, just a
Got it.
different title.
Got it. Okay. Okay. So yeah, I mean the draw not the drawbacks, but the balance here is that you have someone that is paying the entirety of your school, most of the time the entirety of your school, and then of course to give back, you are part of when you graduate, you're going to be a military officer and you contribute up, let's say 4 years or maybe a little bit longer depending upon the type of work that you're doing for that branch,
Correct.
right? Okay.
Correct. No, normally it's 4 years, but
Mhm.
it all depends. If you're a doctor, obviously it's more. If you're a pilot,
Sure, of
it's more.
course.
But usually the standard contractual obligation is 4 years. Mhm.
But the benefit here is you get out and you have a job. I mean,
Exactly.
you basically have a
You,
job.
you have a guarantee. You have a guaranteed job. Your senior year in high school. You know that your college is paid for, or at least majority of the college is paid for. And when you graduate, you have a guaranteed job. So you have a pathway for the next 8 years.
And
Mhm.
a job that is definitely has, again, benefits such as medical and all, and and equipment or certain things that happen, all of those things. I mean, that's just something that part of the military that they're going to provide. Is that correct?
Yes, I mean you get the best leadership training, the
Mhm.
best technical training, and of course the
Right.
most important thing, the opportunity to serve your country.
There you go. Excellent. Okay. So, of course, nothing comes for free, right? So there is a process to apply for an ROTC scholarship. Okay, it's not just do a little bit of paperwork here and then you submit and they pick you, right? So there is definitely a process. I am familiar with that because my son went through that. I know Mike, your son went through that. So there's a lot of opportunities here, right? So let's step us through the process of applying for the scholarship. Okay, so here we go.
Okay, and I saw some questions. You do have to
Yeah.
be a U.S. citizen to apply, correct? And the
Yes.
second question is there a track to go from to MD? And the answer is yes, and we'll cover that in future slides.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
Yep.
so, so there is a pathway to go straight from 4 years of undergrad straight to med school, and I got a student that track. But let's just talk about the application
Sure.
process.
Sure.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Yeah, the best time to start is the spring of your junior year. So really, right
Okay.
now, the
Okay.
re and I'll go into that. They do require an ACT SAT score. That's why I
Okay.
say apply spring, because you're probably gonna your student will more than likely have to take that at least once, if not twice.
Okay.
You'll also have to take a physical fitness test. That's why I
Mhm.
recommend you do it start in spring, so you get your student, in shape. When I say in shape, the test for that physical fitness test. Some branches like the Marine Corps, they require pull-ups. Some require push-ups. So you want to train for that specific test.
I
Some
see.
require a 3 mile run, others only require a mile and a half run. Like Navy's a mile and a
Mm.
half, Marine Corps 3, I think Army's 2. So you need to test for that physical fitness test. And what are they looking for? They're looking for leadership. So how do you get leadership? If you're a varsity athlete, captain of your varsity sport, it doesn't necessarily have to be athletics. It could be, hey, are you part of the student government? President of your student class. But the key is leadership, because the military, as an officer, you are recruited to lead our finest young men and women.
I see.
Another part that is probably the most important part is the interview. The interview is about 50% of the application. So, and that interview is one chance. You get about 15, 20 minutes. You're going to be interviewed by an officer, and that officer then grades you. So that's how important that interview is, right? Because you have grades, you got your ACT scores, you got your leadership, right? You got your letters of recommendation, et cetera, et cetera. But that interview is very important. So, you got one chance to nail it. And that's something that, we prep you on. The ROTC package, if you start now, will be done by August, September. That's plenty of time to get everything in. And then the ROTC boards will start meeting in October. So I'll give you an example, like Air Force, they or the Navy. I'll just give you that because I'm very familiar with the Navy and the Marine Corps. The Navy does a board every month. So they'll start their boards in October, November, December, and at the end of each month, they will then announce who got the scholarship. The Marine Corps will do two boards, one in the fall, which meets in October, and one in the spring, which meets in March. So the students who do this on time, one will know by November if they got scholarship. And then they place that in their application that I have an ROTC scholarship, which carries a lot of weight. Again, results could be published as early as November. And the reason I recommend that folks apply early, so you start applying now, is you could have multiple bites at the apple. If you apply late, right, January, February, March of your senior year, you only may have one bite of the apple.
So what you mean by that is because they start meeting in October, they probably go to what, February, March? Like how far?
February, March. Yes.
February, March. Okay.
So I'll give you an example. Like the Navy will have a board that meets every month: October, November, December, January, February, March, and they'll publish their results at the end of every month. So if your student doesn't get it on the first board, they may get it in the second board. They may get it in the third board. Right?
Got it.
But if you apply in March or February,
sure,
you've lessened your chances.
Of course, yes. I mean,
and the Marine,
yeah,
and the Marine Corps has two boards, one in October and one in, I think, March. It's always best to get it early. So if you don't get it the first time, they'll tell you what you need to sharpen up so you look better on the second board. And that's something too they give you feedback. So it'll help out your package the second board.
So with the application process, really you're talking about, and we would talk about that a little bit about preparation and everything else, but what you're saying is that that's why it's really key to start, in spring, because you need that time to really get better, prepare, be at the best shape, be at the best, grades, the best scores, whatever it is, so that by the time you get to your package and you're submitting in August and September, so that then what happens here is that you can post the most successful, the best application you can have, of course, be prepared for your interview, and then it's a waiting game. Basically, it's just October, November, December, January, February, March, or you're just waiting to see if you get in. Okay, excellent, great.
Correct.
Okay, so we talked about the process, and I just touched upon it. Of course, like I mentioned, it's not just signing on a piece of paper and then that's it. There's preparation that's involved in just getting through this, because I remember for my son, it literally started about a year in advance, because people just don't start running, or kids don't start running if they're not used to running, or they're not used to pulling up, or they're not used to writing, like, because there is I guess the writing piece, right? So there's a lot of things, right? Yes. Exactly. So step us through how is the best way to prepare for the application? What does that look
like? The first thing you need to do is study and complete the ACT or the SAT. It's either one, and I mean this, each student. Some students do better in the ACT. Some students do better in SAT. I would focus on one or the other, right? And it may take 2 or 3 times to get that score you need. That's why I say start it early.
What kind of score are we talking about here, Mike? Like, what's the?
Depends. It depends. If you are going Air Force, you need a very high ACT, SAT score. And there's asked, is there a minimum required for SAT? The answer is
Right.
yes. If you look at the minimum on the website,
Okay.
that's not the correct minimum. I mean, they're going to tell you this is the minimum, right? In reality, you're going to need a higher score. I know the scores, depending on, is it Navy or Air Force, you're going to have they're going to request a higher ACT score, right? If it's Army or Marine Corps, which is very physical, they're going to, the ACT score may be not as competitive, but your physical fitness better be really high. So again, prepare for physical fitness. They're going to give you a physical fitness test. It's usually some sort of upper body pull-ups or push-ups. You do a plank now. The days of sit-ups are over. And then you do a run. And depending on the service, Marines is 3 miles, Navy is 1.5, I think Army's 2. So, you prepare for that. And you want to get the best score on that, right? You want to prepare for the interview. And we prep the students over and over and over again for the interview. The suit that you wear. And I like to say, blue suit, white shirt, red tie, red, white, and blue, right? Okay. For the female students, you don't have to have a shirt, but you get it. Blue suit, white shirt, you get your conservative haircut, right? Some kids, I had some students with big wavy, surfer haircut. Gosh, I mean, their hair was beautiful, but they had to get, a military haircut. You got to prep letters of recommendation. They usually request 3, one from a coach, preferably. They're going to ask someone, say your counselor and a teacher, usually your English or math teacher. You're going to have to draft a personal essay, and it's something we coach the students on because there's key language that they want in that personal essay. Then you got to prepare the application. It's all done online, and it's all points based. Do you have a foreign language, right? How many years were you varsity, correct? How much leadership did you have? These are all based on points, points based. So are you a 1-year varsity or a 3-year varsity? You get more points. Were you captain or were you just a varsity student? Were you student body president or were you just part of the student government? So all these things are point based. Preparing the application, we go through it many, many times over and over again. And then of course there's a medical, that is a whole different, challenge in itself. And that's something that we could talk about offline, but you do have to take a medical.
Got it. So kind of going through this, because again, had the experience, of course you have many, many experiences, but, for the ACT, SAT, the one perspective I know that I had is that with, let's say, the Air Force and the Navy, they're really looking for individuals that are going to be probably going into some type of engineering field.
STEM. Those
exactly.
Yes, they're looking for STEM majors. Engineering. A lot of them are engineering majors,
right?
Mechanical engineering, and they are very they rank the majors, right? The STEM majors, computer science, engineering, they get a very high ranking. While if you're maybe I'll just make this up. I was a history major, right? That would be a lower ranking for Air Force and Navy. For Army and the Marine Corps, it doesn't matter what your major is. They're not very STEM focused. They'll really lean into the physical fitness and leadership.
Yeah, and that's where in line, and we talk about this with all of our families, is that regardless if you're going to a school and you're going into an engineering or let's say STEM major, you still need a high ACT, SAT because you got to be competitive. I mean, that's basically it. You have a lot of students that are going to be taking or going to be submitting their applications with high ACT, SAT scores. So that matches. I know the physical fitness test, again, there are certain times that that they're looking for. And just for everybody's knowledge here, is that there is a scoring system that they have. And so what happens is you want to hit max score for each of the areas. Is that correct?
As much as possible.
I always
like to say the maximum is the minimum, meaning I've done this many times, and many of my students were the number one on and I'll give you an example. If in the Marine Corps, the maximum is 20 pull-ups. The kids who get the scholarships all have 20 pull-ups.
Okay, I see. Got it. Right.
If you can do 22 pull-ups, that's even better, right? Because I mean, that
Right.
shows more. But if you only get 12 pull-ups, that might be a
Yeah.
challenge.
Right. Right. Yeah, of course.
That's
And
why
again, that's right. You
preparation.
want to put, the best chance of getting in, and so you want to have those scores. You want to have the highest scores you can because you've done so well in each of the individual. That makes perfect sense.
Exactly.
Of course, personal essays. I mean, we can go through all the application, and then of course you mentioned the medical, and you do get, because everybody has to understand is that, remember, they're investing $400,000 on you, so they're wanting to know that you are a fit candidate, smart candidate, and that there's nothing, issues, right, medical issues with you,
Correct. Correct.
because they're investing that, right, they're investing that in you, right,
The-
for the long.
yes, there's invest, and I'm talking something simple as vision. They just want to make sure that your eyes are,
Of course.
you don't have bad eyes, right?
Right.
As long as it's correctable at 20/20, correct? You
Of
don't have to have
course.
perfect vision. You want to be a pilot? Well, you need 20/20. If you're
Right.
not a pilot, it's as long as it's correctable at 20/20.
Correct.
Things
That
like
makes
that.
sense.
Things of
Okay.
that. Okay. Mhm.
Great advice for this. Okay, so we've talked about the what it is. We've talked about what the process is and how to prepare for it. So, what are some helpful tips when you're going through this process on how to apply, Mike? What do you give some tips here? So,
Sure. Again, I said start and apply early.
yes.
You don't want to be that student, scrambling at the last minute, asking for letter of
Yeah.
recommendations. You
Right.
you you haven't prepped for the mile run.
Hmm.
You haven't prepped for the ACT score, and you're jamming
Hmm.
it in last minute. I think
Yeah.
that applies for everything. Also
Okay.
apply to multiple ROTC scholarships. I've had
Mm,
students apply for both Navy, Air Force, and Army. And
okay.
then they get 2 out of 3, and then they pick the one they want. It just gives you more options. And
So they don't talk to one another necessarily or anything to say, hey,
no, no, no. And
okay,
you could
so it's
also apply,
independent. Mm,
yes, you could also apply for the service academies as well as ROTC
yes.
scholarships.
Hmm.
I've had students get accepted to service academy. They don't want to go because they want the college experience, so they take the ROTC scholarship.
Got it. I got it. Okay.
Again, we talk about applying early, so you have multiple bites at the apple. So if you get your
Mhm.
package in early, right, and then you go to the October board, and you're not selected for that October board, they're going to tell
Right.
you, hey, this is what you kind of need to improve on. You resubmit for the November board, right? They're going to say, hey, your
Oh,
ACT score maybe needs a little bit more work. Maybe your runtime was a little bit too slow or something like that. I mean, they're gonna give you feedback, and then you could maybe polish up on that feedback, and
wow.
then we work through that. And of course, I like to say, as much as possible, the maximum is the minimum. You're gonna see that, you're gonna see, oh, this is the ACT, SAT score, it's very low, right?
Hmm.
They're going to say the GPA, all you need is a 3.0, and
Right.
maybe an ACT of 25.
Right.
Those are the minimums. And I like
Right.
to say, and when I say the maximum, I always like to say, the kids who get the scholarships are the ones who max out the push-ups. I say it's 82 push-ups. They do all 82 push-ups.
Right.
If a kid does 50 push-ups, that might be challenging, right?
Got it.
Um, the mile-and-a-half run, I think the max is 9 minutes. Don't quote me on that. 6-minute mile. That's very achievable for these young students. If you can
Right.
get 9 minutes, 6-minute mile, I mean, you're gonna do great, right?
Right.
Vice,
Yeah.
vice a 9-minute mile.
Right. Yeah, and again, it makes sense because it's just like with college admissions and going to just, I
Exactly.
mean, not with the Scott, but just you have thousands and thousands, not thousands, but thousands of students who are applying to schools. Of course, the schools are looking at the top students. I mean, that's just how it is.
Exactly.
That's life, right? And so with this, even more so, especially if they are, and you see all these
Hey,
young individuals, yeah, it's paid. I mean, they are literally investing in you, and so it's one of those things, they're investing in
yes.
you, and you need to show them that yes, you are a great candidate, of course. So that makes perfect sense. I did not realize that it, because normally, like with the college application, it's one and done. I mean, you put it in there and then that's it, and you can't do anything. But that's really great that each and every stage you can still improve, you can still add to it.
Yes,
And maybe they probably like that too, because they show,
they
right, that
do.
really,
They
yeah,
do.
you're really,
And I'll give you an example. I had a student, they this is the Marine Corps, they picked the top three kids at that board. One of my students was number one, and then the other student was number four. And I
oh,
asked the captain, I go, what was the difference between number three and number four? And the captain said 7 seconds. I said, seven
wow,
seconds. Yeah, he said, yeah, if he had run 7 seconds faster, he would have gotten the scholarship. So
wow,
that young student prepped for the run. The next board, he improved his run time by 2 minutes. So he got 2 minutes faster. The board
wow,
didn't even ask. They said, what was his run time? And they said it improved by 2 minutes. All 12 board members raised their hand. He got the scholarship.
wow.
And that's another thing. The board, it consists of 12 officers.
Okay,
8 of the 12 must raise their hand, say yes, right?
I see.
They prefer 12 out of 12. And then
Right,
and
of
then
course.
and then everyone's all the recruiters are just like anything else advocating for their best candidates.
Wow. Okay.
Um,
Okay. Wow. That's wow. A lot of insights, amazing insights, things that we probably I wouldn't have known again, of course. And it's so appreciative that you have all these tips. So we talk about Mike, you talked about is, and there were some questions about, all right, where can this lead to, right?
Yes.
Where can these opportunities lead to? And first of all, amazing opportunities, because one, you get your whole, hopefully your whole education paid for, you get great leadership training, all of that. What are some of the pathways that this can lead to? Okay.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I always like to say this, next 6 months will determine the pathway for your student for the next 8 to 12 years.
Wow.
Meaning he's 17, 18 years old when he's applying for it. He gets a 4 year scholarship, right? So there's 4 years in the program. And then he then has a responsibility, right? He has a
Right.
contract for 4 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're a pilot or the aviation contract, you still have to apply for that. So you get the ROTC scholarship, you go, you know what? I want to be a pilot. You
Okay.
apply for that. You get that pilot aviation contract. You're then in the Navy and the Marine Corps. You're then sent to Pensacola, Florida, and they're going to pump
Wow.
in another $2-3 million into you for training to learn how to be a pilot,
Wow.
to fly at the best.
Okay.
The question is, can a green card holder apply for the citizenship? You have to be a U.S. citizen when you're in the program.
Applying. Yeah.
When you're applying,
Okay.
yes. First thing they're gonna say is, "Are you a U.S. citizen?"
Yeah.
So there's a nursing track. So
Okay.
all these services, except the Marine Corps, because they're part of the Navy, has a nursing
Okay.
track. So if you want
Mm-hmm.
to be a nursing student, you apply for the nursing scholarship, and then you get the
Got it.
best training, and then you serve as a Navy
Sure.
nurse, Army nurse, Air Force nurse. Someone asked about the MD program. This is
Yes.
probably one of the most hidden, best secrets, and this just came up very recently. I got one of my students into this. She wanted to be a doctor. We got her a Navy ROTC scholarship to USC. So that's 400,000. It's $100,000 a year. And now the Navy recently, back in the bad old days, my time, you had to serve your 4 years and then you apply to med school. No,
Mm.
they have a direct route now where you do 4 years undergrad, right? Navy pays for it. And then you can go directly to med school for another four
Wow.
years. If of course you got to apply to med school, have the grades and stuff like
Of
that,
course. Yeah.
and then the Navy pays for that also.
Wow. So
So you
eight
have yourself
years.
8 years. So you have yourself potentially, because med school is expensive. I've looked around.
Absolutely.
It's you have yourself a $700,000-800,000 scholarship at the age of 17, and
Wow.
then you do your residency, and then you practice medicine.
Sure.
I got a student in. I mean, wow, at 17, 18, she knew her pathway for the next, what is that? 8 years, 4 and 4 for medical
Right.
school, and then your residency probably for the next 12 years.
Sure.
That student you
Exactly.
they're paying for it. And then they also have a law program. Some of the services, it depends on the service. Again, I'm more familiar with the Navy and the others, is they have a direct route. You apply for the law program. So you go from 4 years of undergrad. If you get accepted into the law school, in the law program, then you go to law school. And
Incredible.
then your time starts. But of course, if they're paying for law school in 3 years, you're gonna have a longer payback period.
Sure. Amazing. Incredible. I mean, it just, I think a lot of people don't realize all the opportunities that are available with respect to, ROTC programs, the type of money that's involved. Of course, again, there is the obligation, of course, and for many people, it's amazing, is the obligation to serve your country.
Serve your
Uh,
country. Yes.
of
Mhm.
course, serve your
Travel
country.
the world, serve your country.
Exactly. Travel the world and serve your country, and you're getting some amazing education. And I do know that there, again, now for everybody on the call here, you still have to make it into the school. I mean, it
Correct.
you still have to apply to the school. You still have to go and do your, you have to have the grades and you have to have everything else in order to make it to that school. But again, if you have a chance in that, then you also have a chance at the ROTC scholarship in a sense of getting it paid, right? I mean, that's just
Yes, sir. And the question popped up about the reserves. Most of the
yes.
time, they're looking for an active duty obligation. Again, $400,000, right?
Yes.
They're looking for a active duty obligation, but there are services. I'll give you an example. Um,
Hmm.
uh, is Army. They do have a reserve program, right?
Oh, okay.
Yes. They have tracks. You want to go active duty or you want to go reserve. Some students decide to go to the reserve track. Some decide to go to active duty track. But most of the services, I'll give you an example, the Navy, the
Mhm.
Marine Corps, the Air Force, there's one track, it's the active duty track.
Got it.
Um,
Okay.
that's why they recruit you, right?
Right. Of course. They want someone that's going to be full time there, all,
Yes.
committed and dedicated, right?
Committed, yes. So the answer is the reserves there are, but depending on the service,
Got it. Okay.
and it's different per each service. And
Now I know. Yeah. Go ahead.
one more thing I want to add. If this isn't for all schools, but some schools will give you consideration. If you get the
Mm,
scholarship, that helps out tremendously. Other
really?
schools don't, and I know
Okay.
that for a fact. Um, because that scholarship is worth a lot. They know their
Of
student is
course.
vetted, they've done the drug test, they have the scores, they'll give you consideration and they will help out. It'll help out in the application process, in the admissions process. It
Ah, I
depends
see.
on it depends on the school. Some
Right.
schools they don't care.
Right.
Other schools, wait, you got the scholarship? Hold on, let's take a look at you, right?
And again, schools, it's a business, right? So some of them they're going to see, they're like, wait, someone's paying full amount for your salary, for your tuition and everything else. Hey, you know what? We'll take that,
Yeah.
right? And we understand that. But then I didn't even think about that too, Mike. Yes, you're right. The vetting process, and for everybody that's on the line, the vetting process is so extensive that the candidates that are coming out here are outstanding candidates. That's just
Yes,
how it
they are.
is. They're
They are.
outstanding candidates. So, it's one of those things where why not? Why wouldn't you want to have that type of individual at your university and is being fully paid? I mean,
Yes.
that's like you can't go wrong there, right?
No, no.
So
So one thing I always advise my students on their college admissions, you're applying to X university, you put
right,
on there that I have let's make it up, an Army, Air Force, Navy, Marine Corps ROTC scholarship. Because
right.
you found out in November, right?
Yeah, so you can apply. Yes, then you can
And you could
put that
put
in your
that on your
application.
application, which depending on the school makes a big
Mhm.
difference. Uh-huh.
And you can also, even if it's, let's say you apply in October, but if you get it, you can update them and say, hey,
Update that.
I just got the
Yes.
scholarship, right? Because I've seen that
Exactly.
happen too. And that has turned the tide for some students, you know.
Yes, it has turned the tide.
Yes.
And I know this for a fact, where they inform the university, and all of a sudden the I'm sorry becomes, hey, congratulations.
Yeah, exactly. So it can definitely affect the actual
It
acceptance
can. It
process.
can. It can. I'm not going to say 100%, but it
Correct.
can.
Correct.
And I've
Yeah.
seen it. I've seen it happen. Yes.
Wow. Excellent. Well, so we're coming to the end here. We're at quarter till, but Q&A. I know there's been a number of questions that people, have been asking. First of all, I always ask this question. If you all can give me some reactions or so, I always want to know, was this information, relevant, pertinent to all? If you could give us just some reaction, because I always love to see, there it is. Yay. Okay. So we have some hearts and everything else, which is great. Thank you so much for that. Now, does anybody, I know there was so many questions already asked, and Mike, I know you went through them already, but first of all, let me see if we have any other questions. Okay, so I don't think there's any questions in the Q&A, but is there any other questions that people that are listening in? Do you have any other questions here? Let me just make sure that I have, because we answered about, what if there's not the country yet, so that we got through that. It's got to be U.S. citizen. Is there any minimum required SATs? Typically, again, if you're normally for the SATs, what I've seen for ACTs, again, 34s or higher, done kind of like 35s, the higher end,
Yeah. Well, I always say a good baseline is like a 30,
Oh,
right?
okay,
For
good. Okay.
ACT. Yeah. Now, if you're going for maybe Air Force, you're going to be looking at a higher, correct?
Yes, of course.
If you're looking for the Marine Corps, Army, it could be a little lower, right? It
Okay,
could
got
be,
it.
but a good baseline to shoot for, or at least look at, is the reason why I know the ACT is, for some reason most of the students I work with do better on the ACT.
ACT than SAT,
I
yeah.
don't know why. I don't know why. And a
Okay.
good baseline is like a 30. That's something to consider. So if your student, say the first time he takes it, gets a 27, more than likely their score is going to improve dramatically, up to 5 points, and it could be up to
Right.
50 or
Sure.
somewhere.
Sure.
They take it and their baseline is with 29, it's probably going to improve.
Okay.
Uh, so
We
so
do have
that
a
that's
question, Mike, here.
sure.
Is there a way to go for ROTC and take a BSMD program during the same time? Okay, so just a little caveat here. So again, BSMD program is one where it's an accelerated program. Typically, it's ranging between 6 to 8 years of where it's direct to medical school. So that the student already knows once if they get accepted, that they don't need to apply for medical, because that's a direct medical school program. But curious, Mike, is for this question, the rigor of ROTC, is it possible to do these accelerated programs like a BSMD program and also still do RTC?
I don't have a answer for that because I've not had a student apply for that, but I do know there is training that you must complete,
Right.
right?
Okay. Right.
That's required. Summer training, you got to go to
Got
officer
it.
candidate school, you got to go to NSI, Naval Indoctor, I forgot what it stands
Yeah.
for.
Mhm.
So the program that I am aware of, that I
Mhm.
personally know because I helped get a student in there, was 4 years of undergrad. The student went in as a pre-med bio major, right?
Right.
And if they still have to take the MCAT and get the good grades,
Got
and
it.
then they could apply to med school. If they get
Mhm.
accepted in med school, the Navy then will then track them, so they go directly to med school for another 4 years, and
Right.
then so it's an eight-year period. In the
Sure.
bad old days when I went in, is you did your 4 years at the university ROTC, you then had to serve 4 years active duty,
Mhm.
and then you could apply to med school,
I
right?
see.
Or
Okay.
they recruit you directly from med school.
Got it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But then you got to pay for your own undergrad.
Sure. 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 Yeah. Yeah, the BSND programs are somewhat new with this accelerated timeline for, and like I said, you don't have to apply to med school because you already know it's an automatic path to med school. Basically, you don't have to, some of them you have to take the MCAT, some of them you don't. But the situation here is that I guess maybe this is a new nuance that we would have to kind of research, Mike. Is that
I would have to research that one, and
yeah.
that would be, I'd have to check, but that would be a fabulous if they had that. Hey, you do your 4 years at X university with that ROTC program, and then you could go directly to med school, and you don't have to apply for it. That's something that I would have to, we'd have to look into.
Okay, great,
Mhm.
great. Okay, let's see. Is there any other questions from the gallery here? Any other questions? Let's see. I always ask 3 times. So second time, is there any other questions from the gallery here? And I know that we had so many questions, and Mike, you've been amazing in answering all of these. Let's see, one more time. Oh, there you go. Thank you. So, all right. So I think we're at time here. So first of all, Mike, we want to thank you so much for joining us and being a special guest. Incredible information. Again, always thank you for your service and all of the things that you've done for us, for the country. You know, we are so appreciative with all the information you've given to us, because I know that this has been a important topic for a lot of our families, asking about, you know, the military option, but also just the scholarships as well. I'll end this by just asking a question. Any last words from you? Anything that you want to give to us with respect to this topic or so?
Yes. One thing the board looks for really is the student, does he want to serve? You know, is service, you know, why do you want to be a military officer, and really serve the country, you know, to give back to something bigger than myself. You know, that's what they're looking for.
Okay.
They want someone who wants to serve in the military, be a military officer.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Well, again, thank you, Mike, for joining us. I know that you have such a busy schedule, but you know, thank you for providing us some time to give us some amazing information. For all those on the line, again, we thank you so much. We know that you could be spending time with your friends and your family or doing some other things, but you're spending time with us. So thank you so much for joining us. And you know, we'll have some more information, and hopefully, Mike, we can invite you back if there's certain other aspects of the scholarship or academy, you know, maybe or so, that you can help us with that. And you can see all the reactions. We got lots of reactions, so it's great. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it. Have a wonderful rest of your evening, and we'll see you in your next training. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.